reversing their diabetes type 2 in weeks. And what's more, she had his contact details. Now, you may think I'd have bitten her arm off to get in touch with this guy, but I was skeptical. After all, which doctor had ever helped me fix my blood sugar? I was done with doctors by this point. But I had nothing to lose, so I emailed Freeman's office and left my details. Then 4 days later, I got woken up with a call from his assistant in Japan. "I'll make this quick," she said. "Professor Freeman will be in Chicago next week. If you'd like to see him, he can spare some time for you." She made an appointment for Friday afternoon, and that day I drove the 4 hours to Chicago, not knowing what to expect. Freeman was a bright guy, very clear and down to earth. I quickly learned he'd lived and worked in a few different countries. He had a number of awards for his breakthrough diabetes research in Japan, Dubai, and Singapore. And his story was interesting. His parents had both developed type 2 diabetes when he was in medical school. He'd seen how diabetes had ruined their lives. The side effects of the medication, the weight gain, the loss of energy, not to mention the drain on their finances. It was painful for him to watch. He'd made it his life's mission to find a way to reverse diabetes type 2 for good, and without needing meds that damage your kidneys and cost the earth. "Let's be clear about one thing, George," he told me. "The true cause of diabetes type 2 is not eating too much carbs or sugar. It's something entirely different. In fact, Americans have decreased their consumption of both sugar and carbs over the last 10 to 15 years, yet diabetes type 2 rates are shooting up faster than ever before. People are trying desperately hard to fix their blood sugar, but they're doing it all wrong. Here's why. Scientists at the University of Utah recently discovered a tiny lipid molecule, a foreign compound called a ceramide, which all diabetics have very high levels of. They discovered that this toxic molecule is the real cause of diabetes type 2, not carbs and not sugar. These tiny compounds force fat cells to spill into the bloodstream and clog up your vital organs, especially the pancreas, the liver, and the heart. You probably already know that your pancreas is the organ that produces insulin, but when it's clogged up with toxic fat, it can't do its job and secrete insulin. And insulin is what tells your cells to absorb sugar and energy from the foods you eat. Without insulin, sugar stays in your bloodstream and your blood sugar creeps up and up, eventually leading to diabetes type 2. This fat streams around the body, sticking to the liver and heart, and even clogging the arteries as well, which explains why diabetics are at a high risk of heart attack and often have fatty livers. Now the problem is that some of us can't flush out foreign compounds like ceramides on our own. Sure, losing some weight can help, but it's not enough for most people. No matter how hard you try to fix your blood sugar, even if you exercise daily and eat next to no sugar and carbs, it's near impossible to reverse diabetes type 2 unless you fix this one thing. He continued, "It's like trying to unblock your clogged sink when someone is pouring cooking fat down it every night. You'll try your best, but the fat keeps pouring down the pipes every night, blocking it up again. It's the same as when you try to fix blood sugar. If the fat keeps streaming into your blood and clogging up your pancreas, it'll never work. It's not your fault. The good news is we now know how to flush out the root cause of the fat, which is this ceramide compound. When you do that, you'll stop fat from entering your bloodstream and clogging your pancreas. You only need to add a powerful blend of phytonutrients to your diet that target and destroy the cause of this fat and melt it away. These phytonutrients are powerful plant compounds that help neutralize foreign agents in the blood, repair DNA damage from exposure to toxins, and fight against inflammation. You'll find them in certain fruits and vegetables. The most powerful of these plant compounds are called flavonoids, lignans, and profenylphenols. These may sound intimidating, but really, they're simple medicinal plant chemicals you'll find in foods at grocery stores. You'll find profenylphenols in foods like in chives, grapes, dark chocolate, and cinnamon. You'll get lignans from eating squash and carrots. And flavonoids you'll find in celery, parsley, and romaine lettuce. But the key is not to get these foods and just eat them in any order. You'll need to combine them in specific amounts and take them at certain times of the day for them to work. When you do that, you'll create a powerful catalytic effect and increase their potency. This is what kickstarts the powerful chain reaction to reversing your diabetes type 2. When you add these nutrients to your diet in these specific combinations, it'll be like you finally get rid of the guy who's pouring fat down your sink every night and blocking it up. You unclog your body, clean it out, and it starts working perfectly well again. especially your pancreas. This sounded good to me, but I was a little skeptical. How does it actually work? I asked him. Well, scientists at the University of East Anglia in England first discovered that phytonutrients are powerful antioxidants that first target and flush out the dangerous ceramide compound that causes the fat to clog your organs in the first place, he told me. Then they melt the nasty white fat deposits by attacking and dissolving the deadly fat cells that sit around your pancreas and belly. When you add other phytonutrients, such as profenylphenols and lignans, it creates a potent catalytic effect that melts away every last cluster of toxic white fat clogging your pancreas, liver, and heart that's been causing diabetes, and without exercise. You'll burn away pounds of belly fat, lower blood pressure, and feel much more energetic. Then he showed me the results of his clinical trials, which were mind-blowing. For over 9 out of 10 diabetics, the toxic fat around their organs melted completely, firing up the pancreas and turning the liver into a fat-burning machine. It was as though they'd fixed their clogged, broken pancreas and liver with a pressure wash, leaving them clean, shiny, and in perfect working order. And with a fully functioning pancreas, they reversed their diabetes type 2 in a few weeks. The participants were men and women from all walks of life. There were 24-year-olds right up to 87-year-olds, newly diagnosed diabetics, people who'd suffered for 20 years with the disease, and a few cases of advanced prediabetes. His system was also melting away an average 22 pounds of excess body fat in the first 6 weeks. Most people reaching the 3-month mark had improved every single one of their health markers. They lowered their blood pressure to healthy levels, improved cardiovascular health, boosted energy levels, and even enhanced brain and memory function. How about the small number of people who didn't fully reverse their diabetes type 2? The treatment lowered their fasting blood sugar levels to around 125, meaning their diabetes was finally under control and low risk. This alone added at least 10 years to their lives. Why don't we know about this diabetes breakthrough in the U.S. and Canada? I asked him. You can find the studies if you look, George, but it's not in the media because it's been suppressed by powerful pharma lobbies who are concerned they'd lose billions if this information is made public, he replied. Then he told me he'd worked for a major pharma company to develop this treatment a few years ago, but to his shock, the research was suddenly shut down without warning. See, the problem was that his phytonutrient combination was so powerful that it would be capable of reversing diabetes in tens of millions of people over the next 2 years. It would mean the pharma company funding the study would lose hundreds of millions of dollars they pocket from pushing their daily diabetes treatments worldwide. Of course, pharma companies don't want people to reverse diabetes type 2, as it's bad for business. That's when Freeman understood how it worked. If a treatment was too good or if results were permanent, they're not interested, and they pull the plug on the research right away. They're only motivated by profit. Their drugs are designed to keep people dependent on them for life, managing the symptoms without ever fixing the disease. At the time, Freeman was frustrated because he had the results to prove he could reverse diabetes type 2. Both of his aging parents had reversed their long-term diabetes type 2 by following his simple protocol. He couldn't keep these results to himself, so he'd taken it to other countries like Japan and Singapore instead. And because he knew his system had to be super simple for people to follow, he developed an easy-to-follow 3-step approach that caused participants to become practically immune to diabetes type 2. Freeman's team made their system super simple and quick by giving people simple daily juice recipes with the exact quantities of vegetables, fruits, and herbs containing the phytonutrients they needed to ignite the diabetes-reversing mechanism inside them. By drinking these juices for breakfast or lunch, they started reversing their diabetes type 2 on the very first day. The potent phytonutrients in their juices protected them from dangerous ceramides and dissolved the dangerous white fat deposits, and keeps blood sugar constantly under control even when people have a cheat day. The results were beyond their wildest expectation. Not only did 9 out of 10 of the participants fully reverse their diabetes, but they kept it away for good, even 5 years on. I asked him if the participants had to lower their intake of carbs. No, replied Freeman. Most people increase their carb intake. The 3 healthiest communities in the world consume a diet with plenty of carbs and have no diabetes. Carbs aren't the real culprit. certain types of modified oils, fake chemicals, and even one dangerous vegetable most people eat are what you need to avoid. Which vegetable is bad for diabetes? I asked him, shaken by this revelation. Kale, he replied. Then he hit me with results of a shocking new report. He said that in the 2019 USDA test on kale, more than 92% of kale samples had 2 or more pesticide residues detected. The most frequently detected pesticide is DCPA, and it's classified by the Environmental Protection Agency since 1995 as a possible human carcinogen and prohibited for use in Europe since 2009. It causes inflammation and oxidative damage. I was stunned. I'd been eating kale almost every day for the past 8 months, believing it to be super healthy. And all this time, kale was destroying my body from the inside. And it made me determined to try a solution out. He printed out some sheets of paper and scribbled on them for a few minutes, then handed me a binder. In that binder were the exact diabetes-reversing shake recipes that had been perfected for his patients. Try this for 3 weeks, he said. Then check your blood sugar levels. I reminded Professor Freeman that I couldn't exercise due to my damaged kneecap. There's not a single workout in my program, he replied. And in fact, I don't recommend that you exercise. I was a little confused, as I expected that I'd need to do daily exercise and follow a crash diet. I didn't know I could reverse diabetes with no more than a binder and some handwritten notes on it. But I trusted Professor Freeman, and I felt he was on my side. He wasn't trying to push expensive meds with nasty side effects on me like my own doctor had. So I decided to give it a try. I thanked him for his time and drove home. I started the program the very next day and was struck by how simple and easy to follow it was. I could find the ingredients at a couple of local grocery stores. The delicious diabetes-destroying shakes made me feel instantly more energetic and lighter. It seemed as though they were cleaning me out. That first night, I slept the whole way through and woke up feeling reinvigorated. I'd usually need 2 coffees to get going each morning, but this day I felt restored and more energetic. 1 week later, my fasting blood sugar was down from 287 to 196. Next week, it was down to 155. And 3 weeks after starting the program, I dipped right down to 123. I checked for a couple of days and my fasting blood sugar wavered above 135 a few times. Then I noticed Professor Freeman had added a handwritten note saying that I had to eat a little earlier in the evening than I was. I did what he said, and 3 days later my blood sugar levels were down to a healthy 118 and stayed there. The fat was falling off my frame. My energy levels were starting to soar. I'd reversed my diabetes type 2. I gave it 2 more weeks, then went back to see Dr. Richardson for my tests. He seemed to be preparing to schedule my amputation and getting ready to give me the bad news. But his expression turned to confusion, then outright astonishment as he looked at my results, then at me, then back to my results again. "These numbers are off the charts," he said. "Not once has anyone come in here after a few weeks with such a huge improvement. Congratulations. You now have the fitness levels of a healthy 40-year-old, and we can forget about the amputation surgery. We'll monitor you for now, but you won't be needing the medication anymore." I nodded my head in agreement without telling him I'd thrown my meds in the trash 2 weeks earlier. I walked out of there a free man, with the biggest grin ever on my face. Could you imagine your doctor tells you you're free of diabetes? How wonderful would you feel? Linda and I hugged each other and cried with happiness. Suddenly, my whole life had been transformed. I would never have to take meds or prick my finger. I would never be a burden to my family and friends or have nightmares about diabetic comas or limb amputations again. I could have a dream retirement with the energy to play with my wonderful grandchildren. I could go out to restaurants and not have to worry about how tired I would get or what food I could eat. I was finally free from diabetes type 2. The first thing I did after hearing the news was go see my grandson Lucas. He looked worried as I kneeled down to speak to him, as if he remembered when the doctor was discussing my leg amputation. "Grandpa's better now," I told him, smiling. "We can go play together as much as you want." Seeing the biggest, happiest smile break out on his face was the best moment of my entire life. He jumped up and hugged me, giggling with joy. "I love you, Grandpa," he said. I felt like $1 million at that moment. And, I'm embarrassed to admit, I burst into tears. The emotions were too much. The little guy was too young to understand that it was all thanks to him. 3 months later, I had a checkup and I was as healthy as I'd been since my 20s. I'd lost a total of 42 pounds. I was overflowing with energy. My health markers were all in the optimal range. I felt great. A few weeks later, I attended Julian and Noriko's wedding. I felt as proud as any father could feel that day. At the reception, as we ate wedding cake, I talked with my wife about our exciting plans. Now I'd reversed my diabetes. "Do you know what our wonderful grandson just said to me?" I said. "He told me I had to help all the other diabetics get better. What a golden heart that boy has." Linda's eyes welled up with tears. "You know, he's right," she finally replied. "We have to spread the word and help others." Linda's diabetic friend Donna was the first to give my treatment a try. She was reluctant at first because she used to be a nurse, and for her, the doctor's advice was the only way to go. But when I showed her my own blood sugar improvement over 3 weeks, then at 5 weeks, she decided she should try it out. At the 7-day mark, she'd lowered her blood sugar from 181 to 143. "It's most likely a temporary fix," she said. But after 3 weeks, she was down to 119. Not only that, but she'd shed 20 pounds in those 4 weeks, lowered her blood pressure, and even got her LDL cholesterol down. She was able to throw her meds and testing kits away for good. Then I got my old mentor and cop partner Roy to give it a go. He was 71 and retired, and like a lot of guys his age, he'd developed diabetes type 2. And Roy wasn't overweight or anything. He was in shape for his age. Like I said, skinny people can have diabetes too. He tried the program out for 2 weeks before texting me his results. "Hey, George, blood sugar's down to 120 already. And I don't know what it is, but I have this new surge of energy since I started." The results were so impressive that we decided to find people through Facebook who suffered from type 2 diabetes. We set up this website to share our secrets so others can get these same results and throw away their medication. We found groups where there were thousands of people who were tired of being stuck on diabetes meds that did nothing for them. We shared our discovery with anyone who was interested. To tell you the truth, I didn't expect it to work as well as it did, but I was blown away by the results. A few weeks later, I started getting several dozen thank you messages on Facebook a day. Before we knew it, our solution had been shared thousands of times. Everyone who thanked us had completed these 3 steps and reversed their type 2 diabetes. Others who had only half followed the program had got their blood sugar levels under control and were very happy. Once we saw how much this helped people, we knew we had to go bigger and put together a full program with feedback from our earlier testers and help as many people as we could. We simply couldn't leave people in the dark, suffering with diabetes type 2. So I contacted Professor Freeman, and together we worked hard to make the nutrition program super clear and easy to follow. And because we know that most diabetics miss eating tasty foods, I got my son Mike to add some delicious flavor to the recipes. He's head chef in a hotel restaurant. And we added the whole gamut of info below, which will benefit every type of diabetic in every way possible. Step 1 is the 2-month nutrition plan that reverses type 2 diabetes in less than 8 weeks. Step 2 is the 7 brown fat boosting metabolic rules for diabetics to make sure your type 2 diabetes stays gone. And step 3 is the meal timing tricks to keep your blood sugar and weight under control. With hard work, we combined all this life-saving research into one simple nutrition guide, and we made sure it was super easy to follow. I remember how overwhelmed I felt by all the different advice out there, so we made sure all the hard work was already done. We made sure it didn't involve much effort or doing exercise that ruins your joints or spending a fortune on pointless health foods. We presented in super simple videos and manuals so anybody can follow it. We called it Diabetes Freedom and started sharing it over the internet. Today, people all over the world are using Diabetes Freedom to break free from diabetes type 2. This simple system is saving lives and transforming the happiness of entire families. I can't take the credit for the results you'll get, because it would never have been possible without the help of Professor Freeman and my family who supported me. And if you're here now, then I believe you're ready to give it a try too. I want you to get the same life-changing results that I did. I want you to be part of this new wave of people who are reversing their diabetes type 2 and adding decades to their lives. I want you to be free of type 2 diabetes.